This regular business meeting of the Waco Independent School Board is hereby called to order. All items which may be discussed or voted upon this evening have been posted as required by state law. I extend a warm welcome to those present and to our television viewers. The board's purpose is to set goals, listen to reports of the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, and personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. We are not here to make management decisions or solve problems of individuals. Management is the responsibility of the superintendent and her staff. I ask that you turn your cell phones to silent alert if you have not already done so. We appreciate the time you have taken to join us and for your interest in the Waco Independent School District. Is anyone signed up? No. The Waco ISD Board of Trustees will now go into closed session at 6:01 to the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, Sections 551.072 and 551.074. At 6:38, the board will reconvene in open session. Please pause with me as we take up time for prayer, contemplation, reflection, or meditation. Moment of silence. Thank you. There were special recognitions for our pledge leaders.
I pledge allegiance to the flag, one United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Vice President Vidania and trustees. I'd like to invite you to the floor to receive our special recognition participants tonight. Each month, one campus selects 2 students to lead the Pledge of Allegiance for the regular business meeting of the Waco ISD Board of Trustees. For the month of July, Brooklyn Hopkins and Myra Lynn Perez from Dean Highland Elementary School were selected for this honor. Brooklyn is in 5th grade and her favorite subject is reading. She enjoys attending sporting events and wants to eventually play volleyball. When she grows up, Brooklyn wants to be a veterinarian. Thank you to her mother, Jennifer Boggy, for sharing your amazing daughter with us. Myra Lynn is also a 5th grader and her favorite subject is math. She enjoys reading, drawing, swimming, and making bracelets. When she grows up, she wants to be a doctor because she enjoys helping people. Thank you to Mother Alma Torres and Rodrigo Camacho for sharing your wonderful daughter with us. Next, we have our Community Partner Award. Each month, Waco ISD recognizes a community partner making a difference for students in the Waco ISD Award with Outstanding Community Partners. The recognition celebrates the theme for the 2021-2022 school year. We are Waco ISD and acknowledges that it's not our employees and students who make the Waco ISD community a great place to teach and learn, but it's also our community partners. In July, the district is recognizing Superior Health with the Community Partner Award. Superior Health has a long history of donating funds to assist with Family Fest. The donated funds make it possible for Waco ISD to purchase backpacks and school supplies that are then given to our students to start the year off with all of the things that they need. Here to accept the award for Superior Health is Miguel Lujan Gonzalez. Thank you for your continued support of Waco ISD and Waco ISD students. And it doesn't look like any of our other students joined us, but I will share the information. We are celebrating our International Thespian Excellence Award winners. Waco High School had 8 students submit work to the International Thespian Excellence Awards. The competition recognizes the highest level of achievement in school theater performance, technical theater, writing, and filmmaking. These students originally submitted their work between November 2021 and February 2022, and scored overall superior ratings at the state level, which qualified them to participate at the international level. The competition was held at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, and our winners scored overall excellent ratings. Bibiana Acevedo for sound design for Shrek the Musical, Bailey Barton, solo musical theater for her performance of Morning Person in the Shrek the Musical, Sierra Shaw, solo acting entitled Viral, Jacebel Hunter, makeup design for Shrek the Musical, Lily Howell and Lydia Allen, duet acting for their performance of Jealousy Jane, Lena Denson, scene design for Shrek the Musical, and Vianney Ramos, solo musical theater for her performance of How About a Dance from Bonnie and Clyde. Congratulations. And that concludes our special recognitions tonight. Thank you.
To the superintendent's report.
All right, good evening, everyone. I have just a few items to share with you. First, our August 6, 2022 Family Fest, and this is an exciting event that Waco ISD will be hosting once again, and this year will be on Saturday, August the 6th, from 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. at both Waco High School and at University High School. This is one more opportunity, one more chance for our students to ensure that they're registered for the 2022-2023 school year. Also, our students and parents can learn more about their child's school and visit with Waco ISD departments that support their educational success, such as transportation, child nutrition, special education. Students who are registered for Waco ISD before or during Family Fest will receive a voucher for one free backpack stocked with school supplies. We'll also have free food, book giveaways, and opportunities for health screenings. The Waco McLennan Public Health District will offer immunizations required by the state for starting school, and they will have COVID-19 vaccinations for anyone 6 months or older. Those will be available, as well as free dental and vision screenings for children and families. As with our previous Family Fest events, students in the University High School feeder pattern should attend the event at University, while those in the Waco High School feeder pattern should attend the event at Waco High School. Transportation is available for both locations, and a schedule of bus times and stops can be found at wacoisd.org/familyfest. The next item is in regards to our licensed professional counselor for our employees. And when our employees return in just a couple of weeks, they will have access to a dedicated full-time licensed professional counselor employed by Ascension Medical Group Providence. This is paid for with district's federal stimulus funds, something that we planned for last year and are now implementing. This is a new benefit for our employees, will be no cost to them. And I would mention that Waco ISD is one of the first school districts in Texas to offer this type of mental health benefit for employees. We're really excited about that, and we're really grateful to Ascension Medical Providence for the partnership on this project and for all of their support that they've provided the district. We really forged a great partnership with them during the pandemic, and they've been a great partner to Waco ISD. This is Tyler Tomick that you see on the screen. He has been hired for the new position. He brings experience in a variety of mental health settings, including private practice, intake, and outpatient services, and he will be housed at the Greater Waco Advanced Healthcare Academy. Any questions about that?
Just a quick one. Are we still working out how teachers are going to have access to that?
Yes, he's actually not here yet, and so once he gets here, we'll work through that. But yes, that's a great question. Next item I have is back to school employee huddles on August the 9th and 10. I will be hosting our employees for a back to school meeting. We're calling it a huddle this year. Every school and department will attend one of 4 sessions, and you all are invited to attend as well. I'll make sure you get a copy of the invitation. The program will last about an hour to an hour and a half. I will be sharing priorities for the school year and discussing this year's theme, which you'll hear a little bit more about this evening from Dr. Gutierrez, but the theme will be Lead from the Heart. And I'll be talking about what that means to me. And I'll also provide an opportunity for our employees to ask questions like they were able to do last year. And we still haven't returned to our full-blown convocation yet due to the pandemic. Any questions about that? All right. And then finally, the Behavior Boot Camp for new teachers. This week, we hosted a 5-day Behavior Boot Camp for our new teachers. This is a new event that was organized by our Student Services Department to ensure that our new teachers learn foundational concepts for behavior systems and support and strategies for de-escalation. The event was also supported by the Special Education Department, Christy Freeman, right back here. Thank you, Christy. Facilitated 2 days on de-escalation strategies. She did a fantastic job of engaging our new teachers. I heard rave reviews about Christy. Then today and tomorrow, May Kaufman with Emergency Tree Education started building off what they learned with Christy to help teachers develop action plans for their classrooms. And so the goal is that by the end of tomorrow, they will be equipped with some tools and resources to increase safe, responsible, and respective behaviors in their classrooms. I'd like to thank Yolanda Williams, haven't seen her this evening, for organizing the event. Really appreciate her work to make that happen. All right, that's all I have this evening.
All right, does any board member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda?
Mr. Vice President.
Yes, sir. Mr. Davis.
Okay, I would want to remove item F, pull item F.
Okay. I- 8F has been pulled from the agenda. I entertain a motion on on consent agenda items that have not been removed and
Motion.
second. Second. Right, now would make a motion to approve 8F on the agenda. Oh, okay. Yeah, all in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Now we'll take a vote on 8F of the agenda. Entertain a motion for that one.
I move that we pass motion 8F.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Well, all in favor of the 8F, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Well, this is passed. Oh, is anybody abstaining?
Yes. Aye. I just wanted to put on the record that I'm abstaining from voting on item F because I work for Communities and Schools of the Heart of Texas, so that's why I'm abstaining for voting on that item.
Next on the agenda is consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the design development for Tennyson Middle School. Ms. Gloria Barrera and Jared and O'Connell Robertson Architects.
Good evening. So we are here to talk to you this evening about the design development and interior and exterior color finishes for Tennyson Middle School. And I don't want to take any of their thunder, so I'm going to let Jared and Doug take it from here.
Thank you, Gloria. It has been a true team effort, so she's part of that thunder as we come here, so we appreciate her being on the team. Design development is the second step in the design phase of the process, so we're excited to be here. This really brings us to that milestone where we've really looked inside the building. We've really worked with teachers, staff, and students to be able to define the intricacies of the design. Our next step will be construction documents, but I'm actually going to hand it over here to Doug, who's running the lead on this project, and he'll guide you through where we're at.
All right. Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
So really quickly, as Jared mentioned, we're going to just kind of step through where we're at in the process and again, just do a quick little recap of some of the design elements and then really focus on some of the new stuff, which is Jared mentioned is the interior design elements for the new Tennyson Middle School. And a lot of these elements are going to look pretty similar to Carver, as again, this is a prototype that we developed for both Carver and Tennyson. So you'll see some similarities, and then you'll also see some differences between the two, some opportunities that we took to really make sure that this campus had a unique identity and really, is cohesive with the prototype, but also, independent and has some really great design features here. So just wanted to really quickly share an update with what's happening on the campus right now. If you've been by there, you've seen a lot of portables show up on Tennyson Drive, and those are temporary to support some of the classrooms that do have to get demolished to support construction. So these are only going to be there during the construction process, and then students will move into the new facility, and then the remainder of the existing facility will be demolished. So there's going to be a little bit of demo happening here, and some work on the existing facility. But then once the new Tennyson Middle School is built, the portables will go away, and the rest of the existing facility will come down. And just as a reminder what that new facility looks like, so the new entrance is now actually going to be facing Sanger, whereas previously you were coming in off of Tennyson Drive. And so again, this is due to where we had to place the building in relation to the existing facility to allow that phased construction to occur. So you have your main entry drive coming in off of North 60th Street, and you've got a great front of the building, clear architecture to really identify that main entrance. And then we've got the courtyard and the track and field there towards Tennyson where your existing facility is. So right now, as Jared mentioned, we're in design development, and that's a lot of consultant coordination, developing those final design elements that you'll see here in a little bit. And we actually are submitting for an early site development permit as well. So we know the permitting process, especially in today's world of construction, continues to take a little bit longer. So we are trying to jump jump ahead a little bit on that, getting some of the site design elements done early to make sure that we don't have any permits holding up the project. So as we start talking about interior design and how we've explored this for Tennyson Middle School, really one of the first things we want to do is develop a mission for the project. And I won't read this whole, couple paragraphs here, but it really is a unique description and a unique mission that we've come up with as a design team to really inspire some of the elements and the materials and the decisions that we've made in the design. And I'll speak to those as we go through the renderings. But the bulk of it is that we've really, taken in that motto that they have of true grit and tried to think about, what are the materials and what are some of the design decisions that we can make that embody that motto. So I'll speak to some of those here as we step through. Feel free to come up and take a look at the materials as well. Using a lot of neutral colors and natural materials, so you'll see a lot of accent paint colors that are unique and going to be throughout the building to help identify different classroom neighborhoods, but not super bold, bright colors necessarily. They're going to be a little bit more reserved for things like graphics and decals and branding. So really the overall color palette and material palette of the building is a little bit more neutral and natural, as I would say. And we do have a couple cool elements like that accent wall covering that you'll see in the areas like the library and things to bring some of these unique design elements into the building. So I got 4 videos here that are pretty quick, so I can run them back if I need to. But we're starting out actually standing in the dining commons. So those two pairs of doors that you kind of see down the corridor, those are actually your main entry doors. So kind of imagine you just walked in the main entry and you're standing in the cafeteria kind of looking around. And this is what you see. So as you spin around, you'll see some of the design elements like the river there on the wall, inspired by the Brazos River. So again, taking in some local geography and local parks and local community elements to try to inspire some of those design pieces. The library there that we passed by with the double doors, again, the library being the heart of the school, super accessible and visible to students, really making that attractive, make kids want to go in there. I'll run that one more time. It's kind of quick. And utilizing things like you see on the ceiling, those are going to be acoustical fins that actually help some of the acoustics in this space. So that's a nice big open space. Want to make sure that it's got good sound performance. And then you can see there on the right as it spins the kitchen. So again, we're standing there in the dining commons, so that kitchen is right there to serve students. And then again, just introducing some design elements like under the staircase, opportunities to introduce some soft seating and other types of areas for students to dine or to break into small groups and work.
Is the river stripe geographically accurate?
Yes. And so now we've stepped into the library. So this view is walking through the library space. Again, this is on the first floor. We've got several small group rooms that you can see there in the back that have lots of transparency into the corridor, lots of visibility from the librarian. So their desk there you can see coming into view is nice and central in the library. They've got good observation of what's going on. They can see who's coming in and out. And again, lots of storage for books, but also lots of breakout space and small kind of soft seating opportunities for small groups to get together. And then going upstairs, this is a little bit of a unique Tennyson component. There is, in the way that the design shifted between Carver and Tennyson, the second level here offers an opportunity for some additional breakout space in the main corridor. And so we've introduced a lot of whiteboard, flexible collaborative space for small groups to gather. But you'll see kind of in the background of that image there also some windows that actually look down into the second level. So you've got good, sight lines to see what's going on downstairs, and then actually a little peek into the library as well. So some cool little features there. And then this last one is one of the classroom neighborhoods. So what you'll see on the right and left of each image, those doors with the windows, those are all going to be entrances into the typical classrooms. And this shared space that you see here in the middle really is going to serve as that opportunity for teachers to allow small groups to break out and work on projects. Again, it's got a variety of different seating types. and as well as things like writable surface on the walls and lots of flexible furniture.
As a builder, I love the thought of the durability of terrazzo. I mean, it's a long-time product. It's also incredibly expensive, isn't it?
It is. So the terrazzo is, it's a cementitious terrazzo that we're only utilizing on the stairs, if I'm correct? The stair treads. So
Okay.
the actual floor is all polished concrete.
Okay, okay.
So that's,
I thought that was terrazzo. I thought, man, that's a
no.
$150 million building right there.
Yeah. No, we definitely take costs in consideration
Okay.
as well when we're looking at materials, and we know that it's only becoming more challenging with certain materials right now. So, all right.
The polished concrete will be really durable, too.
Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of easy on the maintenance as well.
Can we back it up? I just have a question. I missed the field trip that we had scheduled to Belton to explain this. If you can explain the security measures behind an active shooter in this situation, what do those students do in that particular space, the collaboration space right there, and then they go into the classroom? Where do they go from there in the case of an emergency like that?
So I'll back up actually to the floor plan because it kind of helps identify some of those things. So one of the first things we look at is compartmentalization. And so we start actually at the perimeter of the building, and as we, we talk about site fencing, and, it doesn't just start at the building, it starts on the site. So there is, kind of starting from out to in, a perimeter fence that completely encloses the courtyard and the track area. And then we have our secure entry vestibule that is at the main entry. And then all the other doors on the exterior of the building are locked and on card readers. So there is not a door that remains open on the exterior, functionally, other than teachers and district people that have card readers to be able to get into the school. And then when you step into the building, there's compartmentalization of the different neighborhoods. And so, for example, the classroom neighborhood that you see there, I don't know if this is going to work on the screen, but the dark blue and the light blue kind of on each side of the library, each one of those classroom neighborhoods is compartmentalized from the rest of the school. So in a lockdown event, the doors shut and you're prevented from getting to and from the other parts of the campus.
Which door is shut?
So if you can see it on there behind you, these doors here into the classroom neighborhoods on each floor, and then as well as in this main corridor here, all the different main entrances into each component.
Okay, so where do the students in the classrooms, where do they go to get to as far as safety?
So
Those are glass walls on the back wall, right?
on the classroom side?
On the classroom side.
Correct.
So where do those students go inside that classroom if an active shooter make it inside that hallway?
So right now, and Jared, feel free to jump in if you want, but the discussion has been with the design committee on, the classroom neighborhoods really focusing on passive observation of the collaborative areas. So I guess to answer your question, there is not what I would call a hardened classroom that has no windows in it. That has not really been the direction that we've gone, and I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Look at the microphone, Jared. Yeah.
Look at the overall approach of security. We use crime prevention through environmental design, so he's talking about passive observation, reinforcement, and ultimately as students own that, it starts building pride in the community and working through that. Understand you've got a very specific question. So right now within the classrooms, there is a zone that you can identify in I'll call it the top right of a classroom behind the casework that students could retreat to, as well as we're looking at secure blinds within the environment.
That piece right there. Where is that located inside the classroom?
So let me,
A rendering of that.
yeah. There's not a specific, yeah. So right now, you'll see then that low wall on the right side. If you turn around again, easiest to, right here, there's casework, so you could retreat back behind here, as well as then we're looking at window shades that you could then as well drop from a functional every day using testing, but as well in terms of an active shooter event that could occur as well.
I have a question because this is a concern of mine too. So what about the classroom It was one, I forgot which video it was, but it's a classroom with the wall collapsed completely. So in that situation, how long does it take for that wall, I guess, to open up? Like if that's their only thing to hide behind, because there's,
So in that case, most likely, I mean, this is where we have worked with the security team that you would actually move into one of the adjacent classrooms. As we talk, we're talking very specific in terms of an active shooter event. We also talk about in terms of inclement weather. So we've already started identifying those classes. I'll say if there was a tornado in the area that kids could retreat into to provide increased protection from being directly on the outside of the building.
and that wall is big enough for multiple classrooms of students to hide behind in that situation?
So we would put as many students as you can in that zone.
It's just,
Talk about
The whole section of the building locks down. So you'd have to, I mean, you can lock that thing down pretty quickly,
So there's
just the push of a
called
button.
yeah, I think we're more talking about if I'm the student that's in science and you lock down the science wing, what do I do? Because he's in here locked with me, or he or she or whoever the
That's what they're saying, is you're not going to get in.
No, they're saying once he gets in, they would be able to lock down the area that the person's in to contain them.
So there's a button that would lock down the entire school at one time, so you can't go from section of the building to section of the building.
So if I'm in the section that you're in, is what I'm saying. I think that's where we're trying to identify. If I happen to be in the section that the person gets locked down in, what are my options? And if I'm understanding correct, it's the walls that we're seeing where we hide behind those walls.
Correct. With the blinds as well.
But the design elements on all of the new schools that you guys have been working on for us are based on best practices for safety and security. This isn't just something that you decided.
Correct. So it is that balance. So when we talk about CEPTED, we've worked with the Texas School Safety Center out of Texas State that was started back actually when Columbine occurred, that we're using their best practices out of this. And ultimately, it's that balance that we try and strike and find is, we hope that event never occurs on site. And so, but everyday use is educational environment, and how do we maximize that opportunity for our students? And so those are the two balances that we find, and that's really working with the local law enforcement to talk about what is safe, what works, and how do we create that optimum environment.
This goes directly against our own safety policies, what we have in place and protocols. This design does. We tell students to get away from the window and the door and hide in the classroom. That entire rear wall is a window. It's all glass.
Yeah, so I would disagree that it would be against our policies. We would close those curtains down. We actually have additional security features in this building that we don't have in any of our buildings. So if you think about a Uvalde, they didn't have any glass windows, right? Those were regular classrooms, and the shooter still got inside of that classroom, glass or no glass. So in this building, we have the ability to lock down every section of the building. We have security vestibules, we have security cameras, and there's been a lot of thought put into every aspect of the security of this building. This building is also built, though, for instruction. And so the instructional vision is that it's collaborative and that it's open and transparent, and we can have kids moving out to collaborate into these soft spaces in the center for group work. And so it's very engaging for our kids rather than sitting in straight rows and desks in classrooms. So it's just a different instructional model. Yeah.
I just want to say I love the design. I think you guys, it's not that I didn't think you guys took safety into consideration. I just think it's really alarming to hear that our safety plan is multiple classrooms of kids on a short concrete wall in that situation. That's very scary for me to hear. I understand that we don't want that situation to happen. I understand that we have things set in place, but I don't think any district that has faced a tragedy like Uvalde knew or felt like they weren't prepared. So it's alarming, especially when all of our schools kind of have similar designs. So I do wish it was something somewhere else for them to go, a little bit more of a secure spot. I think what Trustee Guillory was referring to is on our safety checklist, it has that windows have to be covered at all times, so I was just wondering, the curtain system that you have, will it come like from the roof? Or is it something they pull, or how does that work?
It's what we call a Mecco shade. So it's a roller shade that goes on the window, and basically with the chain that it would come down over the windows and could be deployed in seconds. So I think as we go through here, as we talk about that balance, and the example is, we look at this, and it's not just Waco ISD that we support. It is across multiple districts and multiple discussions with law enforcement, but as well as you look at Sandy Hook in particular, they ultimately demolished that school and built a facility just like this facility with the amount of transparency and light and with those security means in mind. So it's not that, when we talk about examples, they went back and they built this facility because they feel it's most secure and it creates that right balance for their students.
I think that's the challenge, is creating, you don't want to create a facility that is, looks like a penitentiary and doesn't allow students the ability to have curiosity. And at the same time, we want to do everything we can to make sure that the people we love are most safe. So the button you talk about pushing, that's a one person, like the red phone that
In essence, yes.
one button and every door in the whole system locks down.
Correct.
And can people get in and out of those, or?
So as we go through, we have to maintain fire code is the main thing. So no matter what, you can always get out of the building in case there is a
Okay.
fire.
Okay.
So these would then prevent you from coming back into the building.
Yeah, the thing I like about the visibility is that I also like to be able to see when somebody's coming after me. And so the challenge of not being able to see in the hallway is that you can be surprised quite easily. So the ability to see out of your classroom, to me, could challenge the ADD kid that I was, but I could also see a threat coming towards me, so.
Just to that last statement, we have seen in these facilities, students, they actually do very well in them, and usually it's the adults that are distracted over the kids.
Yeah.
We've gone in and the kids kind of look, oh, hey, and then come right
Back at it, yeah.
So as we proceed, we are, as you saw at the beginning of the slide, starting to work into the construction phase, doing enabling work. So that is currently occurring with Masonic Construction, set to have that ready before school starts is our target. But I'll let Doug run through the rest of the schedule here.
So, yeah, as Jared mentioned, they're underway with the portables and the demolition scope happening and to be completed here around the mid part of August. So that would be before students are back on the 16th. And then you'll see the rest of the timeline there will be complete. We actually just completed the 50% CD set. And again, as I mentioned, submitting early for the site development permit to make sure that ball gets rolling. And then here come mid-September, we would be wrapping up the design phase. So that would allow for bidding and board approval here in the November timeframe for a rough kind of January 2 construction start timeline. And this one's a little bit longer construction than Carver, so Carver was condensed a little bit just to try to get that schedule and meet the opening for next fall. This one is about 16 months, so it's a little bit longer, but that really is actually a more appropriate construction schedule for a building of this size. And lastly, just as we're talking about costs, we've been tracking, particularly as we've had Carver and the opportunity to kind of see where that's come out, which is, again, they're prototypes, so they're very similar. We are, of course, tracking costs as they continue to evolve over time and throughout the year, and what some of the challenges we're seeing. But overall, with the changes in the design for Tennyson and again with some of the alternates that we're considering that match the alternates on Carver, we're tracking in budget for the Tennyson project as well. All right. Any other questions?
Tell them what the motion is, Gloria, what you're asking them to approve tonight. Would you remind them what they're approving?
Yes. So we are asking the board to consider, to approve the design development and interior and exterior color selections for Tennyson Middle School as presented, and authorize O'Connell Robertson to proceed with the construction documents phase.
Entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the proposal of materials and schedule.
You got a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
I have a question on this. So this is to approve the interior design, or are we approving materials?
Material.
Both.
Interior and exterior.
Design and material selections, the color board that Doug presented.
I'm saying no.
Passes 4-2.
Passes 4-2.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is review and discuss Waco ISD's leadership definition and Holdsworth Center update. Dr. Gutierrez and Dr. Kornblum.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. I think you know me, Josie Gutierrez, and we got Dr. Kornblum, and we have our principal at University High School, Mr. McAdoo, and then we have a teacher from Provident Heights, Mrs. Cabrera Nava. And we're all going to present to you tonight and tell you a little bit about the Holdsworth Center and the work we're doing there with the leadership collaboration. So what is Holdsworth, and what is this leadership collaborative? It's an 18-month program that we were selected to do. We're one of 14 school districts across the state of Texas who is accepted into this distinguished program that would help us build a leadership pipeline in our district. But in order to do that, we were going to have to define leadership as a school district. And much of this work is built from the work of great organizations, and specifically, we were learning from a number of organizations in this collaborative, like HEB, the Spurs organization, and other businesses and organizations across the country. But in the collaborative, we were allowed to take 3 people. Dr. Kincannon selected Dr. Kornblum and me to join her at Holdsworth. And part of this work, well, the deliverable was to identify or to define leadership for Waco ISD, but ultimately that definition was going to be used to build out systems and structures for our school district so that we can have a pipeline of ready leaders. And that's ready leaders for all aspects of our organization, not just principals and assistant principals, but any leaders in our teacher leaders, leaders in our maintenance and operations. So this was leadership across the school district, not just unique to our campuses. Why is this work important? It's really important because, as I've already mentioned, the pipeline of ready leaders. We're wanting to hire from within when we have vacancies for leadership roles in our district. And again, across all departments. This isn't just for schools. And it also, we know this work is also important because it increases staff engagement. And what is staff engagement? It's having employees who are really committed to the goals of this school district. These are folks who, they apply discretionary effort. They're motivated. They go above and beyond. They stay with us. And we know that retaining our employees is a really big, it's a big focus of ours. And thirdly, we know this work is important because the main thing is the main thing, having excellent and equitable outcomes for students. That's having honor roll schools. That's having students who excel, but also it's having every school in our system serve our kids in excellent ways and not in ways where their zip code will determine their outcomes. And I'm just briefly going to go over this, but in Holdsworth, we use a framework called the Holdsworth House, and this is how this work has impact on the work that we do. And I want you to look at the bottom of this house, the foundation. That's why we're building out we have built out the leadership definition, and we had to do that first because it's the foundation of this house. And there are some enablers there that are built on top of that house, but the focus of this work is really the pillars, and that starts all the way from when we identify employees who come into our district, and then the development of our employees, how we place employees in different positions in our school district, and in this instance, in leadership roles, and how we support them over time as they grow and as we grow as an organization. And so those 4 areas of focus will ensure that we, all built on our leadership definition, will ensure that we have a pipeline of ready leaders, but also staff who are engaged. And again, that leads to our ultimate goal of having the excellent and equitable outcomes for students that I've already shared with you. So I'm going to turn over to Dr. Kornblum to talk to you a little bit about our task force, because we didn't do this alone. We did this with 24 other folks.
All right, well, good evening. So as Dr. Gutierrez said, we had a task force. So we started our training, Dr. Kincannon, Gutierrez, and myself, back in September of 2021. And they encouraged us the whole time to go slow rather than go fast, and really to take our time. Actually, they wouldn't let us go fast. And to do certain things at certain times. And so the first task that we were tasked with was to form our task force. So we did that, and we had our first meeting in November of 2022. And so we would like to recognize some of those folks. They're not all here, but some of the people who helped us on the task force. So if you were a member of that group, or are a member of the group, because our work isn't finished, please stand and be recognized. So the group was comprised of people from across the district, from maintenance, auxiliary staff, teachers, other directors, because as Dr. Gutierrez said, we really want to develop leadership across the district. It is about a pipeline for principals as well, but we can lead wherever we are, right? And so that's what we're trying to develop across the district. And I'll just say, working with this task force, they were a delight. We had such a rich conversation, and everybody was excited, and it was just a great group of people to work with. So we thank them. So what did our meetings look like? We had 4 meetings. As I said, they started in November, and so one of the first things that we tried to do was help our task force understand the purpose. So why we were there, and it was kind of funny at the beginning because they were all kind of looking like, why are we here? Like, what is this all about? And so by the end, they really had an understanding of what that was. And so we took leadership definitions and frameworks from other outstanding organizations and looked at those to help us define that. Then our meeting 2, we began the real work of looking at our categories, which we'll discuss a little bit later, but what are our categories of leadership going to be? What competencies are wrapped up into those? And then how would we describe those? What does it really mean to us when we think about those things? Our third meeting, we looked at really finalizing those things. The next slide, I'm going to get a little bit deeper into this than I will here. But then in the fourth meeting, we shared our leadership definition with our principal supervisors, because they are coaching and working with the principals, so really trying to develop our leadership around these competencies and the attributes that we're looking for in a leader. So what was really involved in those meetings? So when we first brought everyone together and we reviewed the task force input and we looked at those leadership descriptors, we were trying to decide really what words identified what we were trying to get to the heart of. And that took a lot of wordsmithing and a lot of back and forth. And then we took it back to Holdsworth and we got further feedback. And so it went through several iterations before we came to our final. And as you see, we refined that language. We checked against other research. Our task members used those frameworks from other places. We finally finalized the language, and then we were tasked with coming up with a visual. So you'll see that at the end. I will tell you that our visual was like none other. So, of course, we had to be different. And so you'll see, though, I think it really embodies what it is that we were seeking to define with this definition. And then, number 5, we refined our rationale and identified areas for feedback. And then right now, we're working on our rollout plan. So we'll begin the rollout this summer at our leadership retreat with all of our leaders, and then it'll carry into the school year after that. So there's still some pieces of that to work on, but that's where we are. So we are going to let these guys present the leadership definition and unveil some of the work that we did.
Good evening. So the 3 categories that we had come up with are leading from the heart, leading for results, and leading with character. The first one is leading from the heart. In our meetings, words like caring, compassion, and heart consistently came up. We felt that this was such an important category for our leaders in our district to embody. As I sat in these meetings, I reflected myself on the leaders that I've experienced as a child, my middle school teachers who opened up opportunities for me that I might not have been exposed to even now in this district, the leaders that I am fortunate enough to work with who are opening doors and paving the way for me as a leader here in Waco ISD. And that's the thing about leaders. They have heart, they empower others, they truly lift you up to grow. We agreed that leaders with heart maintain focus on students. They go above and beyond, and not only do they challenge themselves, but they challenge others around them. They lift everyone. All students and staff have equitable access and education and resources and opportunity. Our leaders with heart ensure that. We agreed that those leaders with heart, they foster healthy relationships, which we know today matters so much to our students. They are their voice and their advocate for their academic and their social emotional needs. We also agreed that those leading with heart demonstrate passion. You know it when you see it. They are actively working to value, understand, and respect others. Do you want to go ahead and take the next one? Our next one that we're going to go ahead and talk to you about is leading for results.
So, leading for results, this is a category that oversees really that direction for all stakeholders as a collective. And when it came to this, as a group, we determined that the following competencies of leading for results are needed in a leader of education today. Those competencies being establishing a vision, communicating effectively, being able to execute a plan, facilitating growth, and holding self and others accountable. And this is something, again, that all stakeholders, not just educators, everybody within the district said this is what a leader needs in order to facilitate results and get those results to come through. Then in our discussion, we determined that a leader should inspire and lead the change to impact the organization positively, while also being able to communicate consistently to facilitate the transition for all stakeholders. The leader must be able to engage in a cycle of continuous growth and feedback, which should be built around the innovative solutions to challenge problems that lead to challenging problems that lead to goals of excellence. And after attaining these goals, the leader must then use multiple data sources to demonstrate ownership of those decisions while acknowledging shortcomings and celebrating those decisions. So a leader has to be able to do those things. It's a lot said, but it can be done. And then a third category, leading with character. We really spent a lot of time on this one as well. And the competencies around that is being able to build trust. Have to have that. As a leader today in education, you must be able to build that trust. You have to be able to display integrity, model empathy. Not just have it yourself, but be able to model that for others and what it looks like and what it means. And finally, you have to be able to act with courage. And that's what we're looking for in leaders, and we can expand on it.
So with this one, leading with heart and character, we saw a lot of overlap, but we put them into these categories for a reason. But as you can see, they kind of build on each other. So being able to build those trusting relationships, trust is a foundation in relationships. And you have to be able to build that to have the healthy relationships that go with our leading with heart. We felt that leaders would act with the courage to make those decisions for the greater good, and we know, especially today, making the right choice isn't always easy, but we really wanted our leaders to embody that and to be able to lead with a strong character. All of these categories, competencies, and descriptors were things that we just felt strong leaders in all areas, as was said, people should embody. It's our hope that through great leadership can come great success for all, especially students. And as you saw in the image, this is the foundation, and we're really excited to build it and be a part of it.
So that brings us to the end, and it says questions, but before I open for questions, this is our graphic, our visual that we came up with. Hope Garrity, an art teacher in our district, actually created this. Our task force identified what we wanted our visual to represent, and we gave those attributes, the feeling that we wanted to her, and so this is what she developed for us. And so Lead from the Heart will also carry us into next year and carry us into our work and kind of our theme and what we're focusing on. And I don't know so much that it's a theme. I really think it's just what we do, because leading from the heart, that's not something that goes away, right? It doesn't go out of style, or that is what we need to be as educators. So that's where we're headed. Do we have any questions?
I would like to add and say thank you to Mr. McIndoe and Ms. Nava for presenting this evening and for participating on the committee, as well as all of the other committee members who are here. They were really picky and held us to task on making sure we got what they wanted in this leadership definition. And the significance of this is that it tells everybody what we're about and what we're looking for in our leaders, what we're looking for in our employees. Holdsworth Center comes from HEB. Howard Butt opened it in honor of his mother, who was a teacher. And HEB has a similar kind of definition for all of their employees. And so our hope is that this leadership definition is something that is used in all of our departments to tell people what we want to be about. And it really is about pushing that vision out and being more specific about what we're looking for in our people, all people in the system, not just leaders. And there are lots of ways we've talked about that it can be used in terms of how we interview for personnel, and we'll be working through those how to use it, right, as we continue with our work with Holdsworth. But it was really, I thought it was really good work. I was really pleased with the committee and their thoughtfulness, and we're just really proud of the definition.
Can I say something?
Sure.
When Dr. Kincannon mentioned adding, even through our interview process, while we were there, we had the Spurs organization. They came to speak to us. And when they were talking about recruiting, drafting players, you would think that they would be looking for just the best talent, and that is important. But they said one of the things they're looking for is this person a Spur? Like, do they fit? And they have their own leadership. Does this person embody what it is we're looking for? Because they may be great, but if their character and what they're about doesn't fit with our organization, then they're not going to fit with us. And so that's what we want this to become. We want it to kind of be our guidepost and to help us make our decisions and around everything. So, yeah.
Questions or comments?
What's the next step?
We can both do it. So we know that first and foremost, as we roll this out. I mean, we're going to have an administrators retreat next week, and we're going to be rolling it out at that point. But we know that we have to live by these competencies and exhibit these competencies, model these competencies. So we know that's the first step. And now that it's defined, we can be very explicit about what we're looking for. And like Dr. Kincannon said, our professional development, like our aspiring leaders, will be aligned to this. Our teacher leadership work that rolled out this summer is already aligned to this. So we'll be aligning all the leadership development systems around this work. So those are, I think, the immediate next steps. But if Dr. Kincannon and
We also have several sessions left with Holdsworth, and they're taking us through the next steps. So after we finish the retreat next week, and actually we're taking our leaders to Holdsworth on Sunday evening through Tuesday afternoon. And after our administrators leave, then we'll be staying for our next session with Holdsworth. And so that's what's next, is to keep planning.
I'm sorry, can you say again who designed the logo? It's beautiful.
Hope Garrity, she's the art teacher at Waco High School. Just talked to her about what we wanted about with kids and heart, and she came up with the design, and she did a fantastic job as usual. Yeah.
Just want to say it's a great job. Thank you guys for the work. I think it's very important that we have a clear definition of the kind of people that we want working in the district. So I appreciate you guys for the work.
You have a T-shirt, a Lead from the Heart T-shirt that compliments of Dr. Gutierrez, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll review and discuss the primarily 2022 STAR data and state accountability projections. Ms. Denise Bell.
Good evening. Can you hear me? I feel like I can't hear myself. Okay, we're going to go through the preliminary STAR data and state accountability projections that we have for each of our campuses and as a district overall. I want to give a caveat first, though. Many districts, including us in the state of Texas, have had some difficulties with our STAR data, some errors in files, some errors in data. So I'm still reviewing, making phone calls, following up, being sure that our data is as valid as it's supposed to be with TEA. But it's a new company. It's their first year reporting for accountability. So with anything else, there's going to be maybe some glitches. I'm hoping the glitches have happened before the ratings, but I want to give you that caveat ahead of time. Okay. So what strategies were used to improve STAR performance? It's important to remind you that Waco ISD was already performing lower than the state averages in achievement before the pandemic, and so the pandemic is an absolute true wild card, because we could say that two neighborhoods look the same demographically, but that doesn't mean that they were impacted by COVID the same. So there is a pandemic wild card here, and so we were pretty strategic about it. So based on prior achievement levels and the pandemic setbacks, we focused on student growth toward grade level. So of course we focused on individual student growth, even if they were behind grade level, but we focused on a part of the system and accountability that holds us accountable for students making progress towards grade level if they're not already achieving at grade level. So we did this through 4 features. We used data from the state interim assessments. We used the Renaissance reading and math assessments because they have measures that align with STAR. And we put all that together to align our instruction to STAR. Next, teachers participated in the analysis of student achievement data, and that was through our TCAs and the interim data. I trained the leadership teams and then guided and coached them through working with teacher teams and teacher leaders on that data. We focused on building knowledge of state standards and informing instructional decisions. So we were looking at achievement. Remember, whenever I say achievement from an accountability point of view, it's students performing on STAR. That's how the state measures that achievement. Thirdly, we used remediation plans, and these were developed and implemented for students who were significantly below grade level. So we've implemented some new systems across the board from pre-K through 12 The MTSS, as it's now called, you might know it as the RTI system, is now streamlined across campuses. So students are getting equitable services across campuses. We have SIT teachers, intervention teachers at every campus. We did some restructuring to the high schools and the middle schools to schedule intervention time for every student as a part of their day, not just tutoring before or after trying to catch the students. And then working with the teachers themselves, we continued with the process you've heard before about the DDI, the data-driven instruction process. We had teachers digging in on particular standards. And then finally, individual student achievement was tracked. So I built and the campuses used a growth tracker that tracked every single child as an individual and had measures. What is the goal for what they have to score on STAR for growth? And then we had incremental goals along the way so we could measure whether or not the systems were working and if we needed to do more or less. So in Waco ISD, we focused on growth two ways. The first growth, of course, is that child compared to themselves. Because if they're behind in grade level, we want them to improve, but the state requires us to have them grow towards a particular set standard, and that's the STAR test. So the system is built for growth versus achievement. So the accountability system is actually set up for us to play to our strengths when we go for a rating. And so the 2020 accountability system is a best of for domain 1 or 2. There are 3 domains in the whole system. And domain 1 is student achievement. It measures students on grade level, so I'm emphasizing that on because the STAR test is the measure it uses. And depending on that student's level of achievement, they are identified as approaching grade level, meeting grade level, or mastering grade level. And those are based on statistical analysis that start with the success at the EOCs and worked back. But domain 2, part A, is what we leaned into, and it is called student progress. This measures growth toward grade level in reading and math. Students are given, there are very hard targets that TEA has set, expectations for a certain amount of growth per child, regardless of the performance level that they had. If a student hit that mark, they got expected growth. Expected growth is approximately a year's growth toward being on grade level. So that child still might not be on grade level, but they've made what TEA is deemed to be a year. And then there's accelerated growth. Accelerated growth is well beyond 1 year of growth towards grade level. The students are expected to have performance despite the performance level. So I don't want you to think that this is just about growth for students in the did not meets or approaches. We're held accountable for students who scored masters to score masters again the next year, to continue to stay mastering content so that they have less struggles when they're on secondary ed. So with that domain 1 and domain 2 in mind, one of these becomes 70% of our overall rating. So we leaned into student progress because it was best for what our kids needed and it was our strength. Our elementary schools. So again, I remind you that there may be some errors to the data, but I ran it through another system and it's coming up quite similar for the grades. So there are 3 numbers here for you, 3 measures. The first is the student achievement score. So that's the domain 1, STAR, approaches are better, meets are better, masters averaged. And then there is student progress, and that's the percent of students who were able to make their personal individual progress towards STAR growth. And then I included the overall score for you. I did not include domain 3. That's all of this 1 and 2 data sliced and diced into subpops, and that's some of the areas where there's data issues. But these ones make up the bulk of the rating, and I did include the other domain 3 in the overall when you see that number. So when we think about student achievement and progress, before I go through the numbers, keep in mind student achievement for the elementaries is grades 3, 4, and 5. And one of the grade levels across the state, including us, that had the greatest challenges were the 3rd graders. 3rd graders don't get growth on STAR because they've not yet taken STAR. So when we look at student progress, it's the 4th and 5th graders. But 3rd grade performance being a struggle should make sense because they were 1st graders in the spring of 2020. So there's going to be some time for us to catch up with their particular needs. So Bells Hill overall, I'm reading from those last columns. Bells Hill is projected to be a B, an 89, which is same letter but up 1 point. Cedar Ridge is projected to be a B, an 81, up from a 70 C in 2019. Crestview is projected to be a B, an 84, up from a 76, which was a C in 2019. Dean Highland is projected to be a 71, a C, up from a 50, which was an F in 2019. Hillcrest is projected to be a B, an 80, up from a 71C in 2019. Kendrick is projected to be a B, up from a D, a 60 in 2019. Next slide. Lake Air. I did put the asterisks on Lake Air. They're labeled as an elementary for accountability, but they have grades 3 through 8 and Algebra 1 in their data collectively. So Lake Air is projected to be a 77, a C, up from a 67D in 2019. Mountain View is projected to be a 70, a C, up from a 56, an F in 2019. And you'll notice that one is 2 grade levels up for Mountain View. Parkdale.
It's a higher projected rating than what we shared last month for Mountain
Yes.
View.
Yes, and when we gave you the first initial, Mountain View was calculating at a D. So when we pulled it all together and cleaned up, it came to a C. Parkdale's projected to be an 81, a B, up from a 68, a D in 2019. Providence Heights remains a B with an 80, where there is an 86 in 2019. South Waco is a 61, a D, up from a 59F in 2019. And West Avenue remains a C, and their points are 2 points below, but it could be close to that particular. So all told in elementary, we will have 7 B campuses, 4 C campuses, 1 D campus, and no F campuses in elementary. Did you have a question?
Yes. Parkdale and Providence Heights.
Yes.
So student achievement there is an F. But because I'm assuming they made progress, then the overall school grade is a B.
Yes.
So that's telling us that the students at those 2 schools are significantly behind, but they're catching up. Is that what that translates to?
Correct. And in order for us to earn points in that school progress, they have to meet TEA's measure that's considered 1-year growth. And you'll see in the celebrations, we actually had quite a high % of accelerated. So we kind of had to begin where we were. And when I presented to you earlier in the year, to the board, I told you that their first goal, I asked all the campuses, your first goal is to get back to where you were in 2019, because that alone is resetting and getting back, given all that our students and staff and district have been through. And so we leaned into the school progress because it's not just growth, it's growth on STAR. And before you can get achievement, you got to create systems that get growth towards achievement, and that grows at every level.
And then the state, with the state accountability system, you get domain 1 or domain 2 as your indicator, the higher of the two.
The state wants us to lean into what our strength is in order to achieve our accountability goal, so that's what we did.
So the final ratings, they are not reflective of where if students are achieving our grade level. We would have to just look at domain 1 to see if a 5th grader is on 5th grade level. And then if we wanted to see the B's and the C's we're seeing, that's because we had growth. And how much of that do we think is because we performed so low because of the pandemic? Do we think that factored in, or what is the growth? Is it true growth is what I'm asking, or did we perform so poorly that,
That's a good question. TEA recalibrated nothing because of the pandemic. So the growth that was expected from our children is the same amount of growth that was expected to pre-pandemic students. And the grade we had to get and the cut scores we had to make were exactly the same as pre-pandemic. So we were striving towards, now TA is about to redo the system to adjust cuts for the pandemic. Domain 1's not as straightforward. Domain 2 is like, here's the % of kids who made growth, and it kind of scales up. It's like a curved grade. But domain 1 is all the tests, and its approaches are better, meets are better, masters, the % of those, then that's averaged and divided and scaled. So it's not quite a direct reflection, it's an indirect, but that's why I included the data at the end to kind of show you that it is, you are correct, we performed below grade level as a district before pandemic, so we're just getting back on track.
There's a lot of hard work that went into that growth, and so we're really pleased with the progress in Domain 2. We had student intervention teachers across the board that were working really hard. I heard lots of teachers talk about how much a difference that made when I had my listening sessions in April and May. We had reading recovery that was implemented, and our teachers did a lot of work with DDI in their classrooms and evaluating their data. So there was just a lot of work that went into this, and our kids grew a lot. And we're pleased with that. Are we where we want to be? No. We want to keep growing in Domain 1. And so growing in Domain 2 is how to get growth in Domain 1. So we need to keep doing that. Yeah.
And it was intentionally set up by our commissioner that way, that if a district is stronger at growing students towards grade level until they get there towards achievement, then that's why the system's set up for us to have the best of, so that we can show we might not be there in achievement yet, but we are making children grow by TEA standard towards that achievement.
Do we have the numbers from like 2018 to show the growth from like 2018 to 2019? Like comparatively, was it a significant growth other than years past, or is this pretty standard growth-wise?
So pre-pandemic, I began working with the campuses because the teachers would say it's a very strange algorithm to figure out exactly what score a kid needs. So that was one of the things that I had to teach the campuses. The campuses were leaning more into Part B of Domain 2, which is your Domain 1 compared to your EcoDis percent. So you're still going flat out after achievement. So the feedback I got from almost all the campuses when I worked with them in 2019, right before the pandemic, and began training them on how is Domain 2 even calculated? How do they get growth? And then how can you go towards it? So you would not see strong numbers in growth pre-pandemic, but if you asked the leadership, as I did, it's really because they didn't know exactly the numbers and how to chase them.
This is my last one. So is it a system in place to ensure that students will get our grade level? Because like I'm thinking if I'm in 5th grade and I'm working towards and I didn't meet it, now I'm in 6th grade and I'm working towards but I didn't. So at some point, is it a system in place to where we guarantee students will achieve and get our grade level before they graduate?
So the progress measure per grade level, that algorithm is based on the high school tests down. So how much does a student have to improve in what's called their scale score each year, so that if they're improving at that particular pace, they will achieve success when they get to the end of course exam. So the success might not happen in 1 year or 2, but it's certainly, the whole system's dialed for success at the end of course exams.
Have we been finding success with that? Like our students have been achieving by the time they get to the 12th grade, to their end of course exams? Are they achieving how we're expecting them to?
No, our EOC scores have also been below achievement, below state averages, but they are improving. It's just going to take time for the students that improvement of these elementary schools is going to be profound in 2 to 3 years if we're calibrated this way for the middle school and the high school.
I mean, it's pretty safe to assume that if we don't start progress in 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, and you start in 5th, 6th, or 7th, you're not going to get there by 12th grade. Yeah.
And so our systems, our data systems in the lower grades, those metrics that I talked about, like the TCAs and the Renaissance testing, those numbers and metrics match the star number ones we begin using in the 3rd grade. So we're going for 1st grade through the end of course exams. Our celebrations, unless there's any more questions. Celebrations, 90% of the elementary tests were taken online with no student issues, right? I'd rather have data issues on the back end than kids being struggling. And the reason that is important is that next year it's not negotiable. The entire state of Texas will be online and you will have to write, it's pretty much a 3-page paper to prove why a student would need to take a test on paper. So there will be no more paper tests. Even our students who take the test in Braille do not take the test on paper any longer. So our success here in the elementary is good because it shows our infrastructure was ready and that our students showed this growth when they took this test in a new way. So that was a good time for us to see that. We project that no elementary campus will be rated F in 2022. 7 campuses will have a higher accountability rating. The percentage of elementary students whose growth was accelerated. So remember I told you there's the first measure that's expected, but accelerated is well over a year or more of growth towards STAR. So you might still not be in achievement, but you've jumped up a couple of years. 44% of our elementary reading students scored accelerated, and in math, 33% accelerated. So to me, that shows that what you were talking about, getting them a little bit quicker and a little bit faster. And then district-wide, our 4th grade reading expected growth was hit by 75% of the students. 5th grade reading growth expected, 87% of the students. And then combining 4th and 5th math, it is 70%. And math is going to take a little more time for us to bounce back on because with reading, once you become a stronger reader, the skills can build on themselves and they can accelerate. But in math, if no one ever teaches you the formula to the area of a triangle, it's not going to be intuitive to you. So it takes some time for us to fill in the gaps for math performance. Our middle schools, again, student achievement and student progress. Overall, Cesar Chavez is projected to be a D, a 64 this year, and in 2019, that's up from 54, which was an F, and Tennyson will be a 79, a C, and that is down somewhat from the 82B. Now, our middle schools faced a challenge, quite a challenge, and a lot of that had to do with the transitions in the pandemic. So if a student's an 8th grader this year, they began 6th grade the first year of the pandemic in the spring. And if a student was a 7th grader this year, they were in 5th grade and it was just over in the spring. So that transition, middle school is already tough enough as it is. And so academically, this is really good results for us because it shows that, on top of things that are academic and social emotional things that our middle school students were experiencing, there's progress there. Celebrations for our middle schools, 100% of the kids tested online successfully, so our infrastructure was strong, and we got good results from those online tests. Cesar Chavez is projected to have a higher campus rating than it did in 2019, which is important because they were in school improvement. 97% of our Algebra 1 students scored approaches or better, and that's pretty key because, again, when you think about it, they also had their math instruction disrupted, and yet they were able to still accelerate themselves to that Algebra 1. District-wide, our 7th grade reading expected growth was 77% of our students. 8th grade is 79% reading growth, and then 8th grade math is 74% or higher. And so while you'll see lower achievement in some areas, growth really makes that achievement possible. We're chasing the measures that TEA has set out for us to get towards that achievement. The high schools are rated a little bit differently. So the high schools are rated for 40% of their STAR. So this slide includes 2 sets of end-of-course data. Our students take the end-of-course exams either in December or in the spring, depending on if they're a retester, or in some cases, we had students who had not yet tested and tested for the first time in December. So when TEA rates us, they take the December scores and the spring scores and put them together to come up with the high school's measure. And so you can see that 21 compared to 22, we were pretty close in performance for algebra, English, and then I'll skip to biology. And that's good because that's our freshmen, right? So that kind of gives us the feel for that increase. English 2 approaches are better. We were down a little bit. And then U.S. history, we were down a little bit, but I think it's important to note that that's the class of 2023, and they were COVID exempted from 3 out of 5 of their EOCs in their freshman year. So some of them struggle believing that there won't be a wave for testing, so we struggled getting those kids to participate and come take the test. Also, there were economic factors pulling our juniors and seniors out of the high school to go into the workforce. So that is why there's a difference there in that performance, but we're working on strategic plans to get that back on track, because historically we've not had low numbers in the U.S. history exam for participation. So overall, University High School, for their STAR portion, is projected to have a 65, which is a D, and previously, and a 70 in their growth. And Waco High is projected to have a 56 in the STAR achievement and in growth. And so this just goes to show that struggle that our high schoolers have had from not making that growth over time and having to retest. But one very positive is that 66% of our English 2 tests showed expected growth. And while they may not have passed, the ones who passed, that's fantastic for us, but the ones who did not gives us a good measure because it is still a requirement for these children to pass the 5 EOCs to graduate, with the exception of a graduation committee in their senior year. So these numbers may seem low overall, but the state's numbers for end of course have historically been low. The English 2 test has not topped 65% at the state level. So these are very challenging tests for our kids. And then we have the CCMR, the Career, College, and Military Ready criteria. And in this case, this is what's called a lagging indicator. So in order for the data to catch up and be realized and for us to be rated, it's based on a prior class. So in the first section, the projected CCMR is based on the graduates of the year 2021. Because we submit those graduates in the fall of the year after they graduate, and then TEA gathers up all the data on those students to see if they've achieved a measure. And so university had 50% of that class achieve a CCMR indicator, which scales to an 82 a B. And then Waco High had 51%, which scales to an 82 a B. And so I showed you the raw scores from the 2021 CCMR. We did not get rated, so that's why there's no letter grades in that column right there, but it's the raw score. So it shows you the class of 20 and 21 were about the same in their CCMR performance. Moving over to graduation rate, we've been working hard on this. We've talked about this some time. Projected graduation rate for University High School is 94.6% of the class of 2021. In the pandemic, I just think that's amazing. That scales to a B for them, and that is up from a 93.7. And Waco High is at an 89.4%, which scales to a 65. So you can see how TEA curves that real quick for what they expect. But that is up from 87.9% graduation rate. And slowly, Waco High has been bounding. A few years ago, it was at 77%. So really, we've made a lot of gains. Both campuses saw an increase in the 4-year graduation rate, and both campuses will potentially be rated a C. But these are measures that are hard for them to adjust for, again, because 60% of the rating is from data that's already happened.
So that graduation rate is based on freshman year versus senior year, or beginning of senior year to end of senior year?
So the way the state measures graduation rate is the minute a student enters high school, they're like a ticking little time bomb, right? They have 4 years and a summer, and we're measured on getting them graduated within 4 years and a summer, yes. So it means we're increasingly getting our students to graduate on time, but the other measure that's not in here that's going up is the type of diploma our students are getting. More of them are graduating with endorsements and certifications. Now, Brazos is tricky because it is what's called an AEC, an Alternative Education Campus, a dropout recovery school. They're rated exactly the same way as the high schools. And so I put a note in there for you to say these results are, upsetting when we look at them because it doesn't really reflect the actual work that Brazos is doing because they're being rated exactly the same as a traditional high school. So I put a note for you that due to the inadequate nature of the current accountability system for high schools, TEA is creating a unique set of criteria just for dropout recovery schools that will begin with the ratings next year. So they will only be compared to each other, and we'll find out how Brazos compares to other dropout recovery, and that will give us some new points. So you see the graduation rate, it's within 4 years, but again, students go to Brazos because they're not having success at the traditional high school. So in order to give you some perspective on the statistics, Brazos actually graduated 117 students this year, which was the highest number. So if we let go of cohort, the year they should have graduated, they graduated 117 students, and that's up from 78 students the year before. So the measures we've put in place to get those students in that dropout recovery school have really been successful. So we kind of are excited about a new system to be able to measure, and they'll be able to get credit for students who retest and they actually are successful at Brazos, things like that. So the next few slides are some statistics pulled from the analytic portal, but before we compare, I need to share with you that you might want to put this system in short-term memory because TEA is changing the system next year. So we will be rated different in August 2023. I will not be able to tell you exactly how until at best October 2023, and then I won't be able to tell you what the cuts are for letter grades until approximately the spring of 2023, when those things have already happened. And on top of that, the tests themselves are going to change. So these are two things that are happening outside of our control or venue, but I have been carefully listening to 1 million webinars, as boring as they are to others, they're exciting to me, and comparing what have we been doing, what do we keep, what do we stop, where do we go, and how do we move forward, because that's really important. So these first few slides, I tell the principals that their first competitor is themselves. They have to be better than they were before. That's how we're going to move achievement forward. So in striving for approved achievement, I gave you the first Waco ISD 2021 versus 2022. So you can see that this isn't just, hey, the kids scored so bad in 21, there was nowhere to go but up in 22. We actually had students performing at 8% better in masters in some areas. So this is our reading, grades 3 through 8. And what you should see in the first column, which is did not meet, students who did not pass, you should see a negative number there. You should see a drop in that. And in the other 3 columns are the performance levels. You should see increases. Every single area, 3 through 8 in reading, increased. Every performance level, every grade level in reading. And some of them, they went from a range of increasing by 4, in some cases to 24%. So if you look at that 4th grade approaches, for example, so that's really lifting the kids up. So that to me shows that that system of growth in reading really was paying off benefits across the board. In math, we're going to see a little less upgrowth because there are concepts the students will need to have filled in, but in the first column, you should see a drop from one to the other, and you see that in every area except 7th grade, but that's just 2%, so statistically, it's, I'll watch it, but it's not as worrisome as if it were 20%, if we said. And then approaches, meets, and masters, you should see equal to or higher than, so we at least maintained curricularly or we improved. And that happened in every area except for 7th grade math approaches and 5th grade math masters, but that's 1% difference. So overall, our math instruction in all 3 performance areas moved, the percent of students moved up. So this kind of shows you that going after growth gets us higher achievement scores. Science and social studies don't have growth, but it's the same pattern in the columns. You should see a drop in the first column of did not meet. So you see 2 equals for 5th grade science and 8th grade social studies, and then you see an increase of the did not meet by 4% in science. So the content areas are a little more challenging, and especially the science. The science test is not a 5th grade test. It's a 1st through 5th grade test. They cover standards across elementary over all those years, and 8th grade science covers 6 through 8. So because of that, you can see how COVID would interrupt. And these are not year-to-year kids. So when we look at science 5th grade in 2021, that's the current 6th graders. And so the fact that we were able to maintain some stability in the curriculum is a good trend for us.
I have a question. 2021, I know we were having like issues with getting kids to show up for the test, and a lot of kids didn't end up testing. So I was just wondering, like, how does that factor into the percentages we're seeing? Like, were the same number of kids tested from this year and last year, or how did they work?
So I'm happy to say 3 through 8 tests, all of them were at 99% participation. 99% of the students enrolled in our schools took those tests. And so 2021, we were approximately 98%. So the 3 through 8 scores are pretty comparable because almost all of our students test. It's when we get to the end of course that it gets a little wiggly because of the issues we were having at the high school. EOCs. So earlier in the presentation, when I showed you our end-of-course exams and ratings, I told you that the state includes December and the spring together in one bundle because a student could take it twice and pass one of those two, and we would get the better score. In this case, when you look at state comparisons, you look only at the spring for the kids who took it the first time, because retesters could be they're retesting the first time or they're retesting the 7th time. So when the state looks at comparisons and puts out comparisons, it's only the spring test. So that's why I put these together for you like this. So we should see a drop in percent in that first column for did not meets and increases in the other areas. I remind you that Algebra 1 is not just high school, that's also our middle school scores. You can see English 1 had some difficulties. English 2 had some difficulties. Now you asked about participation, and in this case, we only had 94% of the algebra kids who needed to take it, 93% of the biology, 94% of English 1, 92% of English 2. So for the most part, our freshmen took the test, but in U.S. history, we had an 86% participation rate. And again, that makes sense to me because that's the junior class who was waived from three tests in their freshman year, but also, again, all the forces that were taking our older students out of the building were making it hard for us to have them come in. So because that will impact graduation rate this year, the high schools will definitely have a plan ready to go because those students were juniors last year and they're seniors now, to get them testing for the first time in December and to, if they need it, to take it in the spring to improve on top of the next batch of juniors. So the next section, I gave you Waco ISD versus the state. These are statistics you'll want to see, but again, we were already lagging behind in achievement from the state rates. And as a person who lives and loves stats and data, I have to caution you, state data means every single student in the state of Texas. And while there were already factors mitigating whether students performed well, COVID kind of just turned that all on its head. So all of these slides, you're going to see we had ranges of performing below the state in achievement. But we knew that, and so that is why we first looked at ourselves, improving ourselves and moving forward and being able to increase our student performance. So you can see the statistics for reading. Anywhere from 10% to 24% difference in approaches, anywhere from 15 to 26%. You will notice that third grade. Our third graders were significantly behind the state rate, but our third graders were first graders in the spring of 2020, and the end of first grade is when you typically begin reading interventions, math interventions, any kind of special education identification. So that group of students, it's going to take a little more to get them where they need to be over time, but it was not unexpected.
So are we like adjusting our plan with the third graders if they're like almost 50% of them aren't reading on grade level? Like, are we adjusting the plan for them?
So this is a different kind of data analysis because when we keep looking at the third grade, we're not looking at the same set of kids. So I think that our scores next year would tell us how our curriculum is, but we will follow this set of third graders because they will be feeding up through the system, but we have years to be able to work with them, and all the interventions in place are new with that class of students the past couple of years, and so we have time to really get them back on track.
So we have been adjusting for kids who are behind by adding additional interventionists, curriculum for our intervention programs, training teachers in reading recovery. This year we'll be expanding our reading recovery program. We trained 3 teacher leaders last year. This year, they're training 1 sit teacher at every campus to work with first graders, I believe, Dr. Kornblum. So we've been working on intervention plans all along, but we're still trying to recover.
And any good school improvement begins at that elementary, right? Because if they leave with a strong foundation, the remediation is not as challenging as the students get older. So on all of these slides, you will see Waco ISD achieving below the state rate, but that doesn't come as a surprise to us. That was a pattern we had before. So I live in the us to us. And so when I set goals with the campuses again, it's going to be now we got to do even better than we did before because they still have to grow at a certain rate. And then the end of course exams. So I'll be back in August with the official ratings. August 15th is when they're released to the public and put out there, so I'll come back and share with you the official ratings, and then that's when we would know who's in school improvement. So school improvement is designated based on comparing everybody in the state. I have no idea how other schools did in the state, so I don't know if we would be. So moving up, for example, from Mountain View from an F to a C, they could be completely out of school improvement comparatively to other districts. So because we don't know that, I wouldn't know that until August for you, but I'm very hopeful about the results because growth in Domain 2 was 50% of Domain 3. It was half of what the federal government expected in its rating, so we were working on the same thing in our sub-pops. Any questions?
If parents want to see how their individual child did on the test, how can they do that?
So this year, because it was a new testing company, usually parents get the results mailed to them, and there's a unique code for parents to use. This year, there was a lot of problems with that parent portal at TEA's level, right? So I don't know exactly what the issue was, but they sent an email to districts saying, please don't release the individual scores yet, and they shut down the parent portal, so you couldn't even look up a student if you knew their particular code. So the campuses have the individual results now, and they'll be getting them out to parents as soon as they can. Parents can call the campus, but if everybody calls tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning, that'll be a little rough on the campus. But I think it's important to know that there was a delay in us as a district getting those reports for us to get them out. But a parent can go to txassessment, as one word, .gov, and there's a feature there for parents, students and parents, and it has a way, if you click, it says, like, what is my unique code? So if you know your child's social security number and birthday, you enter that, and it'll give you the code, and you go get your kid's score. So there is a way for people to be able to do that. And so, if you called tomorrow and said, hey, I don't remember my kid's social security number, no one at the school is going to tell you the social security number.
If you know that, you can get into the portal now.
If you do know that,
it is
you
back
absolutely
open.
can get in the portal now. It is active. However, I have heard from other districts that parents have still had difficulty accessing the parent portal. So that's some issue at the TEA level that I'm not aware of, but we do have the individual reports that'll be coming from the campuses now.
And so now it is up to Waco ISD to disseminate the individual reports instead of coming through TEA?
Yes.
And that's going to go through each individual campus. So is there a plan? How will they all go out the same way at every campus, or?
The campuses should be sending them out, starting to mail them out immediately. We only got them yesterday.
Oh.
So they came as a file, and then that file had to go for me to campuses, and I had to verify that the file was complete because there was problems with it, so it took a little time. So again, the campuses have them as of today, but if you'll just give a little patience, by Monday things should be rolling and parents can ask. But if you have your child's social security number and date of birth, you can retrieve the access code, and it will literally take you to the scores.
But everyone should get a letter in the mail.
Yes. So I apologize for the delays. They really were unique to this year. Usually we have those reports quite quickly.
Sounds like not your delay to apologize for. We appreciate your work on getting all of this data for us. Thank you very much.
No problem. Any other questions? Okay.
Now we move to announcements.
Okay, it's busy, 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 so there's a few announcements. The administrative retreat is next Monday, July 25th, and Tuesday, July 26th, at the Holdsworth Center in Austin. Then we have new teacher orientation that will take place August 1st through the 3rd at the Waco Convention Center. Dr. Kincannon will be greeting new teachers at 8:30 on August 1st. All teachers return on August 4th. On August 6th, we will host our annual Family Fest events at Waco High and University High, as Dr. Kincannon already mentioned. Look for more information from your, on August 11th, most of our campuses will be hosting their annual Meet the Teacher Night. Look for more information from your student's school with times and more details. Our next board meeting is on August 11th at 7 p.m. We plan to start a little later so that our board members who have children can visit with their child's teachers. On August 13th, our friends at Ascension Providence will be holding their medical mission at home event at the base at Extraco Event Center. The event provides personalized health care, social, and support services at no cost. The board team building event is August 18th at 5:30 at Cedar Ridge Elementary. And our next regular board meeting will be on August 25th. Of course, student registration is underway now for the 22-23 school year. If you haven't already, you can register online at wacoisd.org or in person at your child's campus. And of course, all of that and more is just building up to a very exciting first day of school on August 16th. That's it. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for attending. We are adjourned.